Thanks so much. So I think this session flows on very nicely from that one, and I think some of the questions that I think were left unanswered there we can answer in this session. So this is all about governments and the future of finance. And public sector finance authorities worldwide are embarking on operational transformation to incorporate and capitalise on the possibilities enabled by innovative technology. So we're going to be looking at lots of issues around those. We have three great speakers with us here, and again we're going to follow the same format, so I'm going to invite each of our speakers to give some opening remarks, and then I'll throw it open to the floor. So first we'll hear from Dina Buza, who is Deputy Director at the Financial Market Policy Department and Head of Credit Institution and Payment Services Policy Division at the Ministry of Finance in Latvia. Great to have you back with us, Dina. Then we've got Diego Villafane Sagadoi, who is the Digital Finance Coordinator at the Department of Digital and Sustainable Finance at the Spanish Treasury. I'm really sorry for my pronunciation of your name. And then we have Sandy Sancasta, who is Head of Government and Strategic Accounts at our knowledge partner, ClearBank. Dina, I'm going to ask you to give some opening remarks.
Yes, thank you. In the previous session, we heard a lot about fintech, what government have to do with setting the fintech scene. In this field, I think also our government has done a lot of work, and we understand that the ecosystem of the fintechs is very important an element for the developing of the future of the finance, because we know that the traditional financial institutions, of course, will play a great role in this development, also offering their own potential innovative solutions, but innovative fintechs have to be somehow also looked at, and this cannot function without the strategic vision for the development. And saying so, we in Latvia have also developed a fintech strategy. It has been working already for some time. We developed the strategy together with the private sector, and with a great engagement from their side. And we also had a great recognition from the political circles that this is a way where we have to go if we want to get even more innovative solutions in the financial sector. And of course, the basic elements have to be in place, and I was looking at the strategy of the Ireland, and it's very, very, very close to the model they are pursuing. And one of those is, of course, development of talent. The second one is regulatory side and excellency in the regulation. With that said, I have to mention that regulator plays a major role in the development. And of course, we heard also about the sandbox solution. We have the innovation hub, and the sandbox have already evolved and has already started to operate like a innovation lab, so to say, for the fintech solutions. And the third pillar is, of course, the state support. We are looking at the opportunities to finance also from the public resources, the fintech companies. And the fourth element is, of course, you have to bring more awareness to the whole society about this sector as such. And we really are building on a very sound basis, because we have already now quite high digitalization in finance. We have 87% of payments in digital format. So we have a very, very strong also basis of the public services already provided in the digital format. For example, yes, this digital identity and also the digital identity in the financial sector is also working very well, and all these solutions have to find the way forward. For government services, also speaking about the government services, the tax payments also from the state side can be made in the digital form, and there is development going on that, for example, electronic invoices will be issued, and this is a development towards more working on tax collection in this format. And we have also an excellent solution, which is electronic declaration system, so that State Revenue Service in communication with taxpayers can do everything in digitalized format. So you do not have to go in person for the consultation. You can just submit in digital format all the documentation, and you can get everything in the service format from the State Revenue Service in this electronic declaration system. It is working really very great. We have also this digital identity, which is publicly sustained service by the regional development agency in Latvia, and we have a government portal where you also can access all the digital format of the services in this one place, and it's called the portal Latvia LV. So you can get almost everything in this portal if you're looking for the services from the government side. But of course, we see that there is still development potential. We see that in the development of the financial sector and also the fintech companies, we have to make closer links also with our universities for education. And I think that education is a key aspect in transforming not only the services but also the users of the services. And of course, there have to be specialists present that can provide these services. This is, I think, one of the key aspects we have to look at. And we know that there is, of course, limited availability of the human capital. So I think the most and the greatest investment, if we would like to have a tangible change in the digitalization, is investment exactly in the human capital. This is key. This is key, and that's why we are seeing this cooperation with our universities one of the key elements of building this system. And if we are speaking about the development of the public sector, I agree very much to already what has been said, that there is potential for the fintech companies in engaging in public procurement and provision of the services to the public authorities. But of course, I understand that the public procurement is a very, very complex as well field. Not all the fintechs are very skillful in European public procurement rules. So therefore, I think we have to look at this if we would like to have the development also for some maybe specific rules to create some pilot environment like a sandbox for financial sector players. But I think it is a way to go. And of course, we see that artificial intelligence is also starting to play a big role in financial sector, and the financial sector will be transformed with the presence of the AI. That's definitely for sure. But currently, we should not look only at the potential benefits, but also how to better regulate it. And with saying so, I think European Union has already made a very great step towards the regulation of, for example, marketing crypto assets. I think really this spearheading of the regulation in this field is a role model for all the other jurisdictions which have not yet adopted any kind of regulation on this. And I think the licensing and very clear setting of the rules is beneficial for the sector when they know that there are clear rules for operation, and there is also the potential for the growth if you have a legal certainty. So I think this is very important also for the development of the AI in financial sector. So the next step would be to have the right balance in this potential regulation of the AI solutions as well, because we know that, for example, in our country we have already some examples when there is the use of AI in, for example, prediction of the profitability of the financial institutions and use in creditworthiness assessment, credit scoring for consumer loans and for issuing loans to the SMEs, and also for some investment solutions as well. So I think this have to be looked also a bit closer.
Thanks, Ian. And I think that issue of AI we'll probably come back to in the conversation, because it comes up in almost every event that we do now, and it's certainly going to be changing the whole fintech space, I think, very quickly. But thank you so much for mentioning there, I think, again, building on what we've heard before, the importance of that working with the private sector, having them very much part of developing your strategy. The political desire you mentioned, I think, going back to something that Ian said at the start with his picture there, how important the political kind of will to do this, really, really important. Development of talent, having that clarity around the rules and the regulations as well. Digital ID coming in again as a key building block, opening the doorway to so many digital services, public services. I'm not sure people see paying their tax as a public service, but we can come on to that. But obviously paying tax is one of the big use case examples, I think, of fintech. And then really focusing on investment, not just in technology, but in people, I think, a crucial thing in the education piece and working with academia. Thank you so much, Dina. Diego, coming on to you.
Thank you very much, Siobhan, Ian, the Global Government Fintech, Department of Finance. Thank you very much for inviting the Spanish Treasury to this very interesting, superb event. So I was invited to reflect on how governments are using financial technology, right? And it has been a bit of a challenge for me because, I still work at the Treasury, so I basically type regulations, and I use Microsoft Word for this, so thank you very much, Microsoft, for this amazing technology. And then I usually send the regulation to my director through Outlook, so that's the second one. And since I'm very tech savvy, I keep it in the cloud, but not everyone is doing this, so that all their workmates won't do this. So this is basically my scope of technology. So for me, it was very interesting to take a step back and look to the wider government, because the government is most of our countries is the biggest company in our country. So we do many things, and technology is everywhere, or if not, should be most likely, more probably everywhere, right? So I'm going to highlight 5 areas of government activity in Spain where we find I think, good applications of technology, and I could highlight maybe some of the challenges in some of the areas, right? So the first area I would tackle is the closest one to my task, which is policy work. So at the Treasury we have a very good financial analysis unit, because so we issue debt, so we need to be very aware of market conditions, of demand, supply, competitors, so on and so forth. But also our Ministry of Economy in general has the task of assessing or an ex-post evaluation of any public policy, right? So economic analysis has really benefited from having available microdata everywhere. And indeed, a key condition to talking about the capitalization of NVIDIA these days is the pre-existence of microdata and the availability of big data. Otherwise, AI would not be as trendy as it is. So for the ministry, for policy evaluation, policy impact analysis, it's key to have, first of all, big data, and second of all, having people trained in machine learning and exploiting this data. So we have turned it out, this is key for public policy. Second area, I would highlight what some authors are naming the algorithmic state, right? This discussion whether we are getting there. So the government has the task of providing many public services, many of them in the form of subsidies. And in the case of Spain, we are a country of 47 million inhabitants. So it's very challenging for a government to assess who has the right to a specific subsidy and under which conditions, and whether these conditions are kept throughout the life of the subsidy. And so many complexities there. So of course, algorithms can help a lot in this. And for example, in Spain, we have, since COVID, we had what we call in Spanish the ingreso mínimo vital, which is like a basic income scheme, which was essential after COVID. And we deployed this new basic income thanks to algorithms. Some lessons also from this task that we undertook, because so the algorithm basically reviews the whole Spanish demography and analyzes who needs the basic income. So we need to be very careful of the data that we are feeding into the algorithm, because unfortunately our society is still very biased in terms of gender, in terms of race, in terms of age. So if we introduce biased data into a state algorithm, then we will have a very biased result, and that's not what we want. So this is a lesson that we took from the first months of implementing this, and thanks to God, then we correct everything, and the implementation was extremely successful in our government. So we need to, because with algorithms, what we want to do is providing public goods. We need to take into account and reduce inequalities. Then we need to be very mindful of not creating new digital divides, because it is very likely that the people that is going to get benefited from this public intervention through technology are people that are not very comfortable using technology. So this is a red line for providing good public services, in my opinion. And also we need to be very mindful of respecting administrative law and the rights of our citizens. So automating all public decisions is good, it can be very efficient, but there is a right of recourse. There are many rights that we have been creating in these 200 years of administrative law that ensure protection and trust in public action. So that needs to be built into the architecture of how we use AI, for example. So this is like the first step of granting a subsidy, but the second step is actually paying the subsidy. And this technical feature of settling a funds transaction is a field of huge potential use of technology as well. For example, the use of instant payments, for example. In Spain, we have Bizum, which is a very successful instant payment solution. More than 90% of transfers in Spain are now instant transfer, thanks to Bizum. CBDCs, if implemented in the future, governments need to use this kind of new technologies. It's ridiculous that the private sector could start paying in 10 seconds and then governments can't do that, right? So that would be a failure. So beyond this algorithm state, a third area of public use of technology, I would say, well, unfortunately, governments need to finance themselves, and we are actually being financed using very traditional technology with 30, 40 years old, since late 80s, early 90s, right? The way we issue public debt. And of course, DLT is in the conversation as well. In Spain, actually now, since last year, companies can issue shares and bonds in DLT. It's something that it's in our securities law already. A second question is whether the Treasury wants to issue public debt on distributed ledger technologies, right? And here, the two considerations we usually think of the Treasury is, first of all, is it efficient? It seems so. It seems that DLTs can reduce settlement time from 2 days, T+2, which is the current settlement deadline, to almost instant. It can contribute to this vision that the Bank of International Settlements usually has of one ledger for the financial system, so integrating cash transaction, but also asset transaction in the same technology. So there's a lot of transparency, a lot of visibility, no need of collateral, so really very efficient. But from the perspective of the Treasury, what we need is also, first of all, interest in the market. So are investors interested in buying DLT bonds? Are they different for investors to normal bonds? Because if they are interested in buying DLT bonds, then it will be cheaper for governments to issue this kind of bonds, as it is the case for green bonds. So, of course, governments issue green bonds because we're very committed with the green transition, but also because there is a greenium. There is some discount that the Treasury benefits from, usually. At least this is the case for Spanish green bonds. A fourth area of interest of technology would be cybersecurity, and I think I don't need to explain more in this area. It's a huge challenge for national security in general, but it is also a great challenge for the digitalization of our economies, right? Cyber risk is positively correlated with the development of a country. For developed countries, it's a huge issue. And if we take into account economic sectors, then you can see in the data that the financial sector is the sector where cyber security exposure is rising the most in the last 10 years because of the digitalization, of course, of our sector. So our Bank of Spain, our supervisors, our governments need to take cybersecurity very seriously. And last, I will just touch briefly on this because I'm not a supervisor, but of course, subtech. Since supervision is done by the public authorities, independent authorities in the case of the EU, but there's a huge scope there's a huge room for using microdata to predict infringements, to learn more about the market, research. Of course, with some caveats as well, because we don't want to jump into a Minority Report situation, the Tom Cruise movie, if you remember, where they are able to predict crime and therefore arrest the criminal before committing a crime. We need to be careful of these kind of situations for obvious reasons, for our tax authorities or central banks. So let's try to predict, but let's not go that far, right? So yeah, I think this is a general overview of how we see it in Spain.
I think it's fantastic because you started off by saying I'm not an expert in all of this, and then I think you've really well set out that question at the beginning that you put up from the webinar, Ian, which is what even is fintech, and I think you've really set out kind of how broad this can be, so covering off from policy work and economic analysis, for example, to the algorithms that you use to decide who would get benefits, and then technology to pay people those benefits, and then the DLT in terms of kind of raising finance for the government, and then in the space of kind of the vulnerabilities around the finance sector and your economic security, it's on the cyber side, and then finally looking at the supervision, area of supervision and predicting possible problems. So a whole range of things there, so really loads of food for thought. Thank you so much, Diego, that's fantastic. Sandy, coming over to you for the last thoughts before I will throw back to the audience.
Sure, okay. Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me on the panel today. We're here not as a government body, but as a bank that wants to support government innovations in the UK and beyond. A bit of context is that we're not a fintech, we're a regtech, because we're a regulated bank and we provide technology. So that just confuses everybody with the fintech definition as well. Just context on ClearBank. ClearBank was created in the UK out of pure necessity and frustration. There were 4 clearing banks in the UK. All constrained by legacy platforms, risk appetites, lack of innovation, etc. So the concept of ClearBank was created in 2015. We spent the year working with the regulators, bank, payment instruments, etc. And then put a company together in April 2016. We put our submission into the FCA in the summer of 2016. And we were regulated by the December of 2016, and then in mobilisation until November 2017, and I've been a fully fledged bank since that day. We're a very different bank to the other 4 clearing banks in the UK. We had the ability to be open-minded in terms of technology because we didn't have a legacy platform and we didn't have customers, so there's no fear factor of migrations and upgrades and such like. So we partnered with Microsoft. We are a cloud-native solution. Everything we do is in the cloud. We created our own payments platform, so we don't outsource, we don't use any gateways, we don't use any third parties, and we connect directly to the payment schemes in the UK using an ISO 222 payment platform. So when things go wrong, we didn't want to rely on third parties. When they do go wrong, it's our developers that are UK-based, owned by ClearBank, that actually deployed the software. They maintain the software and enhance the software. So we didn't want any reliance on any third parties at all. We're also different to the other clearing banks in the UK is the fact that we don't offer services to anybody else other than regulated and public sector. So we don't offer B2B nor B2C. So we don't actually compete with our customers. So from an agency banking perspective, the other 4 clearing banks in the UK, Barclays and HSBC and such like, are providing the exact same service to the end customer as they do via an agency banking provider. So we don't do that, we only provide services to regulated. We've been UK-centric today. We are directly connected to CHAPS, BACS, Faster Payments and Check and Credit Clearing, and we are also principal members of Visa and MasterCard. So everything from a UK payments perspective, we are directly connected to. We offer real accounts, we offer virtual accounts. All of our clients receive a dedicated and unique sort code, and they then have access to our API and are in control of their destiny 24/7. So we can create accounts on the fly, make payments on the fly. We've also fairly recently applied for our European license, and we hope to launch ClearBank Europe in the summer of this year. And we have further ambition for expansion into the US and hope to plan to launch ClearBank US in the summer of next year. The benefit of that gives us from a technical perspective is cross-border payments. So somebody in the UK as a ClearBank customer moving to funds to a ClearBank customer in Europe, that is a 24/7 instant access cross-border transaction, all processed in the cloud, HSM encryption at both ends of the equation. And the reason we're here really today is to talk about government and how we support government. And there are some significant use cases. PayPoint comes to name. I think a question was raised earlier about how do homelessness people receive funds and such like. The projects we have with PayPoint, which has picked up a number of awards recently, it is for that exact purpose. So anybody that DWP deems worthy of receiving a benefit payment, PayPoint creates a one-time use-only QR code. The individual takes that QR code to any one of PayPoint's outputs, which I think is about 24,000 retailers in the UK. They present the QR code and the PayPoint retailer gives them exactly that money down to coins, which is obviously an advantage to ATMs where you can't dispense coins. So from that perspective, as long as the DWP have confirmed that the individual is to receive that money, the collaboration between PayPoint and ClearBank allows that benefit to receive that money through an outlet, 24,000 retailers, and obviously opening hours far greater than things like the post office and such like. We also support a company called AllPay, which provides payments to Glasgow and Birmingham councils, and we've recently been listed on the Crown Commercial Service for open banking. We provide a confirmation of payee service, and in partnership with EcoSpend that provide open banking. So collaboration is where we are. The contentions point we want to raise is everybody thinks digitisation is a good step forward. To us, it's a pathway towards transformation. Digitising a manual process is not good enough. Transformation is looking at the process and is that process fit for purpose today. With all of the ability for us in fintech to provide real-time access and straight-through processing, all of our clients initiate a payment their side. We put that through to the payment scheme and we send back a webhook in near real time with all of the information from the scheme. Not a subset, it's not a report, it's real-time data. That rich data can be used to enhance services for the end user. So what we're looking to do is support government to create better outcomes for government and for the consumers. So we're here to actually promote thought and offer different opportunities than batch processing and such like, and it's rich data. Things are coming forward, you know, APP, AI, all of those areas that we work with are now benefit of real-time processing, and rich data helps to support all of those. So it's just basically us here promoting the idea that there are other alternatives, you know, to the traditional banks in the UK. We provide a far superior service in terms of access to data and processing that data, and be happy to speak to anybody thereafter. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sandy. I really like what you said at the end, because we do lots of events on digital transformation in general. And I think that key thing, because it's coming up as one of the foundations for fintech, is you have to have done the work. And I think that point about you can't just digitalise a bad process, you know, you have to do that transformative work behind the scenes. And I think only then will you be able to maximise the full potential of all the new technologies. And really interesting to hear your case study on your use case example, the PayPoint. So I hope that's answered that question at the back there. I have one question, because you said that so one question I think for Dina and Diego, based on what you said, that you had the freedom of not having legacy systems in place. And my one question to Diego and Dina, before I go to the audience, is we do in the public sector have these huge legacy issues. Is the cost of modernisation, do you think, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to the extent to which the public sector can actually adopt new technology? Dina, I'll come to you first.
Well, I think that I should rephrase the famous Margaret Thatcher say, you either transform or die. Yes, she said, you rather export or you die. But I think in this respect, you have to understand that if you want to make the service which is offered by the public authority timely, let's say, not costly to the taxpayers, you have to face all the issues which have to be dealt with the transformation. So I would not say that it should be made at any cost, but if you are not transforming, you will not be coping with the real economy. You will not be coping and going in line with what is your economy development. So I think that government have to be one of the leaders in this process, not the lagger behind. So I think that this is the most important aspect. the innovation, of course, is not coming in a plain field. It comes with respective, of course, will to make the innovation. Then, of course, the dedication of certain actors which are leading this process. But of course, you should not disregard the cost for not innovating will be more than the cost of innovating in the future. Yes.
Thanks. And Diego, from sitting in Treasury, because I guess departments would always look to their treasuries and say, well, you're not giving us the money that we need to do this transformation.
I mean, it's a matter of money, of course, as everything in life. But I would not say it's the biggest challenge. So we have legacy systems, of course. It's natural, it can be other way. But from a personal point of view, it would be that the biggest challenge would be a skills, human capital challenge. So, I mean, it's pointless to have the best technology if you don't have people that knows how to run this technology or the purpose of why doing it. So for me, the biggest challenge is how to attract people with technological knowledge to the administration, taking into account that by definition and financial and fiscal responsibility restrictions, no normal government will be able to pay as much as the private sector can. That's a fact. So we have very good lawyers in the public sector. We have very good economists. This is not happening with technology experts. And we want to supervise now all technologies. We want to create the best framework. So we need these people, right? And there's a problem with because we briefly touch upon. Don't remember who touched upon this. The procurement problems, right? So an additional challenge of procuring technologies for the private sector, in my opinion, is the fact that the public sector cannot be dependent on private actors. So we can use technologies, we can leverage on this. It's where innovation is taking place, of course, in the private sector. Should be this way. But we cannot, the end of the journey cannot be a situation where public services are run and decided and completely dependent on the private sector, because there's a duty of transparency, there's a duty of how we do public things that the private does not have in front of parliament, in front of citizens, elections, so on and so forth. So
I can see there's a reaction to that already in the room. So Ian's put his hand up for that one. Can we get the mic?
We need to learn to do things.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect, Diego, because you picked up on procurement, and it was a question I wanted to ask, because Dina also raised it as the challenge for fintechs or regtechs to get on public rosters. And it was a question for Sandy, actually, because Sandy referred to the European expansion plans for Clearbank. I guess with any company expanding across Europe, there are various challenges. To what extent is getting into those different countries' procurement rosters for whichever services you're seeking to provide in different countries going to be, do you think, one of the main obstacles for Clearbank in Europe? And I won't ask about America, because I'm sure that's a totally different challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a challenge. To a certain degree, there was naivety on our side. I think we took our UK FCA application submission to a regulator and assumed they might rubber stamp that, and we'd been authorised straight away, and it wasn't that way. We had to start from ground zero and go through an entire process. We were working with a particular regulator. We were working for almost 2 years and didn't make a great deal of progress. So then launched another opportunity with a different regulator, and is that regulator that's actually worked with us today. So yes, there were challenges. Some of it was our naivety, I accept. Some of it was bad timing, because this was all around Brexit. And this is all when an awful lot of activity was being made upon the regulators, so they were inundated with requests. But it's not been plain sailing. You know, we assumed that, you know, being a UK regulated bank by the FCA, that would carry a certain amount of credibility. And I don't think it carries as much as we thought. So everybody's reviewed, you know, equally from a new application perspective. And of course, from a European perspective, you know, you go into one country, you then have to go through ECB, you then have the passport. So, you know, we're starting today in the Netherlands, and say we'll hopefully launch ClearBank Europe at the back end of the summer, and then we have plans for passport. There's been a big period of understanding from a European perspective, particularly IBAN discrimination, something we had no idea of, you know, when we started this journey into Europe. And I remember having conversations with the EU about, you know, this discrimination. And I said, well, why don't you create an EU IBAN and mask the particular individual country's IBAN? Because you're not going to get people like SWIFT and banks to change the existing IBANs to a new EU, but you could actually mask all of them with an EU IBAN. So every beneficiary receives money from an EU IBAN, not a particular sending. And there's a lot of discussions I think should have been had that aren't being had. So life could be straightforward, and I don't think Europe is as harmonised as it could be. So it's a journey, and we know that journey is not over. So we're, I'll say, hoping to launch in the back end of the summer. From a US perspective, the strategic decision has been made not to apply for a licence. We're going to acquire and then rename and such like. There's a much quicker route to market. So life could be easier, most definitely.
Thanks. Who would like to have the next question? I mean, if there's not a question from the audience at the moment, I want to pick up again on what you said about AI and the extent to which that you think AI is going to fundamentally change the landscape. Is this something that you think the public sector is prepared for? We might come back to skills again, but it's kind of already here. So my question is, how well prepared is the public sector for what AI is going to do in terms of transforming the way that we work?
Well, I think that there are not only challenges, but also the benefits for the public sector using AI, and in particular there are already the solutions which was mentioned as supervisory technology solutions, for example, where you can use AI tools to look, for example, at the transactions and to avoid fraud. So I think these tools can be definitely very widely used by the supervisory authorities and supervisory population as such, because I think that one of the issues which can be identified very easily with these pattern analysis is detection of the fraud, detection of the suspicious transactions, and of course also there is this aspect of whether the speed of payments and AML will be could be tackled at the same time. I would say that we should use the speed of analysis of transactions the AI is doing for exactly the detection of the AML, for example, also by the private entities. The awareness of the public sector is, I think, much more on a higher level than it has been before. But of course, there have to be also, again, the education towards what is exactly AI and how AI can be used in the provision of the public services and also supervisory authorities, supervisory activities. I think this is also still some way to go.
And we've got a session, one of our final sessions this afternoon will be looking at fighting financial fraud, and I'm sure AI will come up in that session. Diego, you mentioned using AI already, but the possibility of kind of the risks of AI in terms of possible biases. So is that something that you're already very concerned about?
The biases, you mean?
Yeah, both the potential opportunities, but also the risks.
So in terms of, so first in terms of challenges and then potential opportunity, because it's the answer to challenges in the way I think about this issue. So as you said, it comes back to skills. And I think the AI regulation that we just passed in the EU is aware of this, because it mandates all member states to create AI sandboxes, because it's a recognition of maybe member states are not prepared to understand the private sector, and the private sector is confused as to what are the supervisory expectations. So it came back in the beginning of the first panel, but sandboxes are a very useful tool, and I hope that they're very useful to adapt skills in the two sides of the market and the supervisor. So since it's a complex task, I think we need to prioritize AI cases in the public sector, right? It's true that if you look at the market, there is a lot of techno-optimism related to AI, and much of it comes because of the cost-cutting potential of AI, right? It's a huge driver of adoption in the market, and that's the logic of the market. So, and it's okay, it should be like this. But governments still do not need to behave necessarily by a cost-cutting logic, because there's accountability and there's public trust involved. So if just by cost-cutting you're going to give very bad public services or attention to vulnerable people, old people, like our countries are getting old, then it's not worthy, because we need to preserve public trust in public services. So we need a prioritization and to really see in which fields AI can deliver to everyone. I think this is the reflection that we need to do.
Thanks. Sandy, your final thoughts on AI, both as you're seeing it being used in the public sector, but also are you using it yourselves?
Limited for us in many respects, because all of our customers are regulated and they do the B2B and B2C, so they'll be using AI a lot more than us. Yeah. I think AI is not generally understood in terms of what it actually means, certainly from a general public perspective. I think there's fear factor of Big Brother, getting access to all of my data. Generally, that fear factor is people that may have something to hide. I mean, most of the general public today, aren't overly concerned about their data because they've got nothing to hide. There's also fear factor about how it's going to impact jobs, because at the moment you've got teams of analytical guys looking in for transactional fraud and such like. Well, that job will be machined. So, but what does that mean from an impact to humans perspective? I think the bias is another interesting aspect, that it's got to be done. I mean, two things: you got to have rich data and an awful lot of rich data, and you've got to have AI that's completely unbiased. So I think it does have a play. I don't think we actually, and none of us understand how that's going to play out at the moment. We as a technical provider are open and supportive of using technology to help the general public, better outcomes, reduce fraud, etc. So I think at this point in time, it's kind of watch this space and see how things develop.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm again looking at our clock. I think we are out of time, but please join me first in saying a big thanks to our panel. So to Dina, to Diego and Sandy, thank you so much.